Let's continue this conversation. Welcome in our panel for the day, Steve Mona, 2021 National Black Golf Hall of Fame inductee, Andrew Haynes, Vice President, Executive Creative Director of Fair Game, and Ty DeLavallade, founder and president of Deuce Premium. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. And Steve, I want to start with you, but I want all of you to answer this question. Where are we today in 2022 in matters of racial justice?
Well, we're a lot further along than we were a year ago at this time, I can tell you that. And what's happened is the major golf organizations have teamed up with all the top brands in the industry, along with a number of other entities that work in the golf space, to launch something called Make Golf Your Thing. And just to boil it down, it's a multifaceted and multi-pronged effort designed to bring people who've traditionally not been part of the game into the game, both as participants and also as potential employees or people who work in the game. And just to give you a specific example, later this year or during the course of 2022, $750,000 will be granted to grassroots programs to help develop people to come into the game through programs that are traditionally underfunded in a lot of major metro areas. So we're certainly not there by a long shot, but tremendous strides have been made in a relatively short period of time.
For sure. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think the way that I think about it is kind of like a two-part, I guess, two sides of the coin. As people, I think there's this heightened sense of awareness in terms of what is happening, how do we connect with each other, what is right, what is wrong, probably higher than it's ever been before, which I think is great. But then like how that has been carried over into golf, I think, you know, being able to give people more opportunities, more access is great. I think the foundation is in place, which I think is really exciting. But I think it's one of those things where, okay, we're starting to get some momentum. Let's make sure that this isn't just a 6-month thing and temporary thing. How can we kind of continue to keep this going so it becomes a continuous cycle that can, you know, keep itself going over time?
And I chime in, and I'm also on the committee for Make Golf Your Thing as well. So I'm very excited about the movement and what's happening. I would say one thing that's actually pretty unique right now is when I would say in the last couple of years, it was just myself with Deuce and Eastside Golf, and as the only two Black-owned companies in the golf atmosphere as relates to e-commerce, and now there's close to 30. So we can see that there's change coming. We can see that people are getting excited. We can see that opportunities are starting to open up. And now with PGA Tour Superstore and Golf Channel, NBC Sports doing things that are outside the box with building better together programs, we know that it's happening. It's just that obviously, as we know, there's still so much more that has to come. There's still a lot of steps and a lot of feats and a lot of people who need to step up and raise their hand and say, how can I help? Because that's, for me, when we're looking at the big picture, we still have a lot to go. We still have a lot more to do in the industry as relates to the e-commerce side, as well as even in the non-for-profit and philanthropy as well.
Andrew, what do young people say about golf? What are they saying about this sport compared to maybe football or basketball or baseball?
It's interesting. I think for me, like, I mean, I'm kind of young. I think earlier, like some of the younger generations might say, oh, that's something that I never would have considered in the past or something that I wouldn't have tried. I do think that conversation is changing. I do see more younger people that look like me are giving golf a shot. It's really exciting. Like, you know, one of the things that we're doing over at Fair Game is making content, making, you know, different types of, things that get more people excited about golf. And like, I have a friend of mine, for example, that texted me over the weekend that said, hey, I like what you guys are doing. That's awesome. I think I'm actually going to give this game a shot. And when I'm, seeing and hearing things like that is really promising, that it shows like, hey, this game is changing and people are starting to think about it differently. And just that mentality of, saying that, 10 years ago, like, hey, I would never give that a shot, to now seeing more and more people say, hey, I might go to Topgolf, or hey, I might go hit some balls with you at the range. Like, having those conversations now, I think is very exciting.
Ty, on that note, there's been a push to bring Black people to golf, but how important is it that golf kind of meets Black people where they live? And I'm talking about from a cultural standpoint and incorporating aspects of African-American culture and music and fashion to golf.
I think where we are is there's a lot of opportunities right now. There's a lot of events happening. We want to see more events happening that bring people together as a culture. There used to be it was an event called the Black Enterprise Golf and Tennis Challenge, which was pretty much like an ecosystem for golfers to come from all over the U.S. and the Caribbean to join together for a weekend in the summer. But that event is no longer there as we used to see it. But I do see other events happening. And a lot of those events are actually happening for our youth, which is great because now we have the Mac Champ Invitational that's going to be coming up in March. And then we have the Jim Thorpe Invitational as well that's going to be coming up in February, which is going to be here in Orlando, which I'm proud to be the co-chair of that particular event. But I know that as a culture, we have to do more as it relates to bringing us together, not just for golf, but for actually a culture around experiences and bringing the kids, the families, and the professionals as well together for one particular effort. I know there's opportunities for that. So people just have to step up and raise their hand and come together and collaborate.
Steve, how about that notion, according to the National Golf Foundation in 2019, African Americans represented only 3% of players. How do we increase those numbers?
Well, you've already talked about some of it. You have to go to where the people are. You can't expect in a sport like golf for people just to magically appear at golf courses that haven't had any prior interaction with the game. So that's why that grassroots grant program I talked about a few minutes ago is so important. So that's a big part of it. And as Andrew mentioned, the whole social element about it, and is golf perceived to be a game for nerds versus part of the cultural norms of society? So I think that's important too, and I think we've made strides there. I would say one thing, though, that really ties into this, and it's a comment that Andrew made, and that is, let's hope this isn't a 6-month initiative, if you will. I think it's different this time. I've been in the golf industry 42 years. This is definitely different. And there's 2 reasons why that's true. First, the top leaders in the golf industry are personally involved with this. And that really basically hasn't happened before in this form anyway. And secondly, there's significant dollars behind it. And that hasn't happened before. So we've got the golf industry has a 7-figure budget to apply to this. So I think you're going to see a sustained effort that has a chance to take us places we haven't been before.
Steve, we focus appropriate attention on the black professional golfer, but what are we doing to introduce people and black people to assistant pro jobs, head pro jobs, instructor positions, meeting young people when they're first finding out about golf?
It's a great question, and there's not a silver bullet answer to it, but I think it goes back to a statement that we've all heard, and that is you have to see it to be it. And I think to the extent more people can see people that look like them in these positions, and not just African Americans, let's talk gender as well, and other ethnicities. That's been slow to come. I think we'd all admit that, but we have seen improvement there. And I know the PGA of America, for instance, is doing yeoman's work to try to ensure that people who are in these different classes that we're talking about are shown more visibly through the association and its various publications and media. So I think that's critically important, Shane, to this whole equation.
Andrew and Steve hit on some of these points about the USGA, the PGA of America, the PGA Tour, Augusta National endowing scholarships and golf programs, how important that is. But I was struck when you said the fear of this only being a 6-month or 9-month push. Are you sensing any fatigue at all about this conversation? Because this is going to take sustained effort. What are you hearing on the ground?
I consider myself to be an optimist, and I also want to give, the industry the benefit of the doubt, to be completely honest. I think that the work is being done. It's positive, but also you can't just do something one time. Like, you can't just hit one good shot and think everything's going to be okay. You kind of have to keep at it. So for me, it's just, I see the effort. I appreciate the effort, but let's keep it going and let's do it together. It's also one of those things where it's not something that, the responsibility is on, it's not on people of color. It's one of those things that we're going to kind of have to keep the conversation open, collaborate, see how we can do it together, because, having representation, having, different people from different backgrounds having a seat at the table, together we can make this game better.
Ty, how about you? Are you sensing fatigue from the industry? Or are you still sensing some optimism and some energy?
Not to be fair, I love what I'm seeing. Obviously we would love to see things move a lot faster, but at the end of the day, we have to know that we have taken so much time, to actually get to this point. So for us to get 5 steps further, it's going to take a lot more effort. It's going to take a lot more of the legend, a lot of the big brands to step up and say something. I have some friends over at Troon, and we all know that right now Troon is the largest employer in the sport of golf. And so Troon actually has an opportunity, which they're already doing, and they have a great counsel. And Kendall Murphy just got brought on as the DE&I director, which I'm very proud of him and very excited for his opportunity. But I know that people are being hired in positions to make change. What my goal is, and my hope is rather, is that we see it being done at a pace that's a lot faster than we currently are. We know that some things are moving. But again, with Make Golf Your Thing being where it is, and it's moving at a pace that it's not a snail pace, but it's moving quickly. But we're gonna really have to get people in place, and people who actually, instead of doing a lot of talking, we actually have to do some execution in some of these opportunities, because we've seen a lot of talking over the years. We've seen a lot of programs, a lot of things being introduced, but the execution gets lost after the money's been put in and people start moving in different ways. So I'm hoping that they put people in place who are executors, not just people who are here for white paper.
It's a great point you make, Ty. We've come a long way and still a lot of work to do. Gentlemen, thanks so much for your time on this Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We appreciate your time and thoughts.